الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. We are continuing our study of Surah Yusuf, the 12th chapter in the Quran. And we've reached now verse number 5. But if we step back to verse number 4, in verse number 4, we talked about how the Prophet Yusuf ﷺ came to his father, and he shared with him a dream he had of 11 stars, the sun, the moon. And last week I spoke a lot about having someone in your life that you can confide in, someone that you can consult with. In our religion, we have something known as shura, consultation. The idea that you don't need to, rebuild the wheel, right? You don't have to start from scratch every time. You can learn from the experiences of others, from their successes and from their failures. But you need to have people that are trustworthy, people that are wise, people that have experienced what you've been through, and can offer you that guidance. Now, in this case, it happens to be for the Prophet Yusuf, who? His father. And look at the comfort level he has to be able to go to his father and share this really strange dream. I mean, it's a dream in which he's seen celestial bodies like the stars, the moon, the sun, and they're prostrating to him. Like, how do you make sense of that as a young boy? What does that even mean? So he goes to his father. Now in verse 5, Allah Ta'ala mentions the response of the father, Yaqub. He says, Ya bunayya la taqsus ru'yak ala ikhwatik fayakidu laka kayda. He says, oh my dear son, don't relate your vision to your brothers. So interesting. First advice, don't share this with your brothers. Because the Prophet Yaqub knew his sons. The Prophet Yaqub knew his sons. He understood their nature. He said, don't tell them. Or otherwise, what will they do? They will devise a plot against you. Now, imagine you heard that. Don't tell your brothers. Don't tell your siblings. What's your thought? Immediately, you'd probably think that your siblings are terrible people. No? Some of you are like, I already know that. No. But you would think that, imagine, your parents are telling you, your father's telling you, watch out for your siblings. And your father loves your siblings. And yet he's still telling you, don't tell them. What will that do for you as a child, psychologically, in terms of your attitude towards your brothers? You become extremely suspicious. You would start to really distrust them. You might begin to avoid them. That could plant the seeds for what? Like deep enmity. Hey, I thought these were my brothers, they cared about me. But here's my dad telling me watch out for them. And from that day on, you're just like, I'm not rolling with them. But look at the Prophet Yaqub, look at his wisdom. Look what he says. He finishes by saying, Inna shaytana lil insani aduwwun mubin. He says, my son, remember that shaitan is a sworn enemy to humankind. Why would he mention that after saying, don't tell your brothers? To say that what? Anyone? See the connection there? Yeah.
It's not your brothers.
Beautiful. To say that, look, your brothers are just humans. They're humans who are susceptible to the whisperings of the devil. That if they get up to no good, it's probably because of the devil. As though to say that your brothers are not inherently evil, but they might come under the influence of the devil. That's wisdom. How do you describe somebody who does wrong? Think about that. When you were to tell someone, how do you describe them? They're just terrible people. They're evil. They're this. They're that. And you make it sound like they're just inherently serial killers. That's how bad you paint them out to be. But subhanAllah, someone who's prophetic. This is a prophet speaking here. See, what does shaitan come and do? He will come and whisper in your heart how terrible someone is because of one mistake they made. No? Someone does one thing wrong. And then, and I'm sure we've all experienced this at some point in our lives. Someone wrongs us in one aspect, like one little thing. What do we start doing? Almost like concocting a bigger narrative about it. Oh wow, so they ghosted me this time. So that means probably last time when they said they were late, they just didn't care. It wasn't that important. And you start like coming up with this whole narrative. That's Shaytan coming to you to say, you need to see this person as an evil person. What does a prophet do though? A prophet says, look, sincere advice, watch out for your brothers. But hey, don't forget that your brothers, they're human. At the end of the day, Shaytan might get the worst of that, bring out the worst in them. And subhanAllah, this is powerful tarbiyah. For those of you who know the chapter of the Prophet Yusuf, you know that towards the end of the surah, when the Prophet Yusuf ultimately then has what? How the dream manifests, he sees it play out in front of him. Right? It's a long story, inshallah we'll get there. But you know when he goes to explain what happened, what does he say? مِن بَعْدِ أَن نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي. He says, it's so nice for us to be here together. I'm so grateful to Allah that He reconciled us as a family after Shaytan split us apart. That's tarbiyah. At this age, as a young child, the seeds are planted by the father to say what? Look, your brothers might do you wrong. Just always know that they're still good people. Just Shaytan can cause people to do some pretty bad things. And he never forgot that. After all that they did to him, in the end, the tarbiyah, that training from his father, paid off. And so when you have to advise someone, how do you frame it? Don't even walk on the same road as them. Right? If you see them running towards the elevator, hit the close button. Is that what you say? Or do you say, look, you should be careful with them. They're human beings at the end of the day. Maybe Shaytan, cause them to do something. Because you know something about them. See, that's balanced advice. Without a person losing, right, total perspective on someone. And he tells them what? He says that your brothers will devise a plot against you. Why would they do that? We know, because that's jealousy. That's how jealousy is. Jealousy will cause you to do things that you really, down the line, will regret. We learn from this right here, you don't need to share your good news with everybody. It's so hard. You don't need to share your good news with everybody. Because even though you're just sharing it sincerely out of gratitude and happiness, not everybody sees it from a lens of gratitude and happiness. They might see it from a lens of envy. And so you need to be very selective with whom you share your successes. And I know it's tough. Because you might say, well, come on, aren't we holding a bad opinion of people? No, because they're human. And Shaytan might cause something to come up. See how we're already applying that lesson here? It's not that people are evil and that's why they'll be envious. It's they're human. And if they lack something and they see you with it, that pain in their heart due to the absence of that thing from their lives might cause them to feel a certain way. And then Shaytan will capitalize. He'll jump on board and be like, see, yeah, look, that person's just enjoying their life. And look at you, look how miserable you are. And what? And the story starts. They don't even deserve it. You deserve it. And it's just jealousy. May Allah save us. May Allah save us. Humans, people might be good people, but the devil is always plotting. People might be good people, but the devil works overtime, all the time. Right? So we need to be careful. Now he goes on to tell his son. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ. He's still telling Yusuf alayhi salam. Now, think about it, right? First you give this advice of don't tell your brothers. They might plot against you. The devil's out there to get you. That's a lot of negative advice. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end here. Right? It's just really bad news. But subhanAllah, he tells them, look, As a prophet, he's able to give him this type of, insight. He says, وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ. Oh, Yusuf, because he was a prophet, Yaqub, so he understood what's happening here. He said, oh Yusuf, your Lord will choose you. يَجْتَبِيكَ. You could tell that this was the beginnings of a prophetic journey for Yusuf. The beginning of a prophetic journey, is it easy or is it tough? Every single time it's tough. Look at the Prophet ﷺ, the beginning of his prophetic journey. Was it easy? What was the first thing he was told? That people are going to respect you, they're going to love you. When he received revelation, he went to Khadija, she took him to her cousin Waraqah bin Nawfal. What did he tell him? Waraqah told him, I wish I were younger so I could see the day when your people will kick you out of Mecca. He's telling this to a man who for most of his life was called As-Sadiq al-Amin, the trustworthy, the truthful. People respected him, they loved him. And Waraqah's telling him, no, there's tough days ahead. You're going to get kicked out of Mecca. And the Prophet ﷺ could not believe it. Really? Allah mukhrijiyahum? Like, are they really going to take me out of Mecca? He said, everybody who brought this message experienced this type of opposition. That's the reality. The journey to God does contain many difficulties along the way. And anyone who started taking their religion seriously knows this. You start trying to practice and people are like, what happened to you? Hey, chill, this must just be a Ramadan thing, huh? You're like, no, this is me. They're like, no, we know you. I got videos, right, from our last cottage trip, right? You're like, dude, wrong person to go with. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, you're trying to make changes, and the first people against you sometimes are those nearest to you. You're trying to act all pious now, please. After all you've done. And it's a taunting. Every single prophet faced that opposition. The Prophet ﷺ could not believe that his people would do this to him. And that's interesting because you're not choosing to do a wrong thing here. You're choosing to commit yourself to Allah. And the first thing you face are challenges. That's the prophetic example. Is you chose a path that's deeply rewarding and meaningful, but it will contain challenges. And look at this now. What's the next thing he tells the Prophet Yusuf? The Prophet Yusuf just saw this dream, and he was told, hey, your brothers might plot against you, so don't tell them. So now he's worried. He goes, no. This is the beginning of your prophetic journey. Your Lord will choose you, inshallah, for a great mission. And then, يُعَلِّمُكَ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. He will teach you the interpretation of dreams. Wow. The very beginning of the Prophet Yusuf's journey is a confusing dream. A dream that tells him and gives him a little hint as to what is to come. But even before the dream can manifest, he's told, you had this dream, you're going to be a special person, but your brother's going to be mad jealous of you. And he was stressed about that. And then he's told what? Yeah, your Lord, you're going to go from not understanding a dream you had to being someone who will interpret dreams for others. The Prophet Yusuf had a dream, and he thought this dream was a major problem in his life, probably, right? That's why he went to his dad. But actually, that would become his strength. That would be the way that he would get out of jail. That would be the way that he would rise up to prominence with the minister. Because of his ability to interpret dreams. In your life, you might have some difficulty, something you're going through. That you're like, man, why am I going through this? And down the line, that very thing may become your greatest strength. Look at so many people who've pursued a certain career. They did so because at some point they struggled. No? At some point they struggled. Look at, I promise you this is not based on you, but look at many personal trainers. They often struggle at the beginning with their own health. they go through a journey. It's really hard, it's tough. But they're able to get themselves in shape. And it's so meaningful, it's transformative, both physically, mentally. And they go, I want to share this with others. Because I know what it's like to go through it. The very thing that they were insecure about, that they struggled with, became their strength, that they ended up trying to share with the world. Mental health is the same. Right? People struggle with their mental health, they become passionate about it. I don't want to see people struggle the way I struggle. And so they have a burning passion to go and offer that to others. You might look at your problem today, whatever it is that you're going through, and think, man, this is the worst thing to ever happen to me. And down the line, God knows what is in store. That could be your greatest strength. Because you'll be passionate about it. And others won't be. And even if they theoretically get it, they haven't been through it. And this is important to understand. Right? Because the experience you go through gives you that burning personal passion. Someone else seeing someone struggles, like, yeah, it looks kind of tough, right? They don't feel it. Like, yeah, it looks kind of hard. Yeah, it's important. But there's no burning passion to say, I will be the one who makes a change. The Prophet Yusuf, subhanAllah, right? His father tells him, you will go on and you will interpret dreams. And he tells him, look, you come from a special lineage. Allah will complete and perfect His favor upon you and the descendants of Ya'qub, just as He once perfected it upon your forefathers, Ibrahim and Ishaq. Your Lord is all-knowing, all-wise. In the next verse, and just to step back for a second. Now, when he tells him, don't tell your brothers, they might plot against you, and the devil's out there, who's he talking about? The Prophet Yaqub, Jacob, is speaking about all of creation. These are all creation. His brothers are creation. The devil is creation. And you can feel very alone in the face of creation. In the next verse, though, he connects him to Allah. To say, look, you're going to be up against opposition. You'll be going through difficult times. But don't forget you have your Lord with you. This is very powerful. Because very shortly we're going to read of the Prophet Yusuf at the bottom of a well. And in those moments he doesn't forget that he's not alone. He doesn't forget that lesson. Even at the bottom of the well, he remembers, I have my Lord with me. You know the words that you tell your child, they're so powerful. Do we merely tell them, go ask so-and-so for help? Or do we remind them, go to Allah, He's always there for you? Because there will be moments where you won't have anybody. I was talking to somebody recently, and they were talking about how they were going through quite a bit in life, but they said all along, I always could talk to Allah about it. And then recently they went through something and they felt numb. They said, I just don't feel connected anymore. When I pray, I just don't feel anything. It's almost like I can't talk to Him. And they said, now I fully feel alone. But imagine telling someone that no matter what you go through, your Lord is there with you. It's a powerful lesson. We see how it manifests in the life of the Prophet Yusuf. Allah then says in verse 7, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. Indeed, in the story of Joseph and his brothers, there are lessons for all who ask. See, the Quran is full of guidance. The Quran is full of lessons. What's the problem? What's the problem then? Why is it that some people can write volumes and volumes explaining the Quran, and we read the Quran and we go, oh, okay, yeah, sure, not that serious. What's the difference? How is it two people can read the same book, watch the same movie, but walk away with drastically different takeaways? What does it depend on? It's not just the book. It's the individual. What questions are they bringing? You know, the Quran It has answers. It's just we have to ask the right questions. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that the rivalry that you have with your siblings would be addressed in the Quran? It's Surah Yusuf right here. But Allah says what? The lessons are for those who ask, who are seeking the answers. If you're not asking the question, don't be surprised if you don't find the answer. And so when we approach the Quran, it's a question that we need to have. What is Allah saying to me? What do I have going on in my life that I need addressed? That I might find some guidance in regards to it in the Quran. And that's, I think, really something that is quite tragic, is we lose our curiosity, no? We're no longer curious in life. Because life, subhanAllah, children find life extremely, extremely wonderful, like full of wonder. They have an excitement about life. And they ask a lot of questions. And they try to make sense of it. And they explore. But as we get older, we stop doing that. And we just take things for granted. That's just how it is. No, it could be otherwise. There's a lot of different ways you could think about it. And that's where children really get you to start thinking. Because they'll ask you questions that you never thought twice about. Like, I never considered that perspective. I never considered that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here that there are lessons for those who ask in what? Not only the story of the Prophet Yusuf, but in the story of Yusuf and his brothers. Because maybe you read the story of Yusuf and go, yeah, no, I'm not really like a prophet, so I can't really relate. Yusuf is such a good guy, mashallah. He's a prophet, after all. He's such a righteous person, always taking the high road. But that's not me. But the story of the Prophet Yusuf is not just about the Prophet Yusuf, it's about his brothers as well. We learn what goes on with his brothers. They make big mistakes. Repeatedly, they betray him. They lie. They do so much wrong. And subhanAllah, look at the path to redemption that you see in this chapter. You see it in this very chapter. Don't only read this story from the angle and the lens of the Prophet Yusuf. Also read it from the angle of his father. Also read it from the angle of his brothers. And that's exactly what Allah is doing now. In the next verse, he will turn to a different conversation. Prior to this, we spoke about the conversation between the Prophet Yaqub and his son, the Prophet Yusuf. Now, Allah shifts the discussion to the brothers. Allah says, remember, if qalu, remember when they gathered and they said to one another, they started having this convo. What did they say? And this lam is lam of ta'keed. La Yusufu wa akhuhu ahabbu ila abina minna. They said, surely, like we know for a fact that Yusuf and his brother, Benjamin, they're more beloved to our father than we are. And then they said something interesting. They say, وَنَحْنُ عُصْبَةٌ, despite the fact that we are a large group. There's only 2 of them, and there's 11 of us. And he likes those 2 more than us. And what do they say then? Indeed, our father is clearly mistaken. Who's wrong in the situation? Our dad. Very fascinating. Because, number one, when the Prophet Yusuf had a problem, who did he go to? His dad. When they had a problem, who did they go to? Each other. The difference good advice, good guidance can make, and poor advice and poor guidance can make. You know what the challenge is for some of us? I'm just going to say it, guys. It's going to be a tough one. Right? You might walk out of here like muttering under your breath about me, and that's okay. Sometimes that's why we go to our friends. We don't want someone to give us the truth. We want someone who, even if even if we're wrong, will side with us when we're wrong. Do you understand that? We will go to our friends, not because they'll tell us what we need to hear. They'll tell us what we want to hear. So we go to them, we'll tell them what happened, and your friend's listening to you going, what are you doing? In their head, they're thinking, that's terrible. But they can't say that. So what do they tell you? Yeah, your dad shouldn't have done that. Your mom, no, they shouldn't have. Even though in their heart, they're like, you're the problem. But they don't say it. And that's why we go to them. Just be honest. Some of us, that's what we do. And then we wonder why my life's not getting better. Yeah, Shaykh, life is so tough. Yeah, living a life where you avoid the truth is going to be tough. That's not how life is designed to be. And that, many of us, as we get older, we will look back in life at those who told us the truth, and maybe we even cut them off. But we'll be grateful to them. You know what? As much as it hurt at that time, thank you. I'm grateful they told me that. Because it did get me to reconsider and realize that maybe I'm the problem. Do you notice how they don't do that here? What do they say at the end? They say our dad is clearly mistaken. If you're a father and your son thinks you're the problem, don't worry. Prophet Yaqub, his sons thought he was the problem. Right? Not to say your fathers are never part of the problem. It's just to say you're never going to, be perfect. You can see how much comfort I find in this verse, right? I read this and I'm like, yeah, there you go. But subhanAllah. When you sit with people that are not there to try to figure out the truth, Shaitan's always part of those conversations. And he'll come and whisper. And he's like the one who's just affirming everything. So someone says, yeah, your dad shouldn't have done that. And then Shaitan whispers, yeah, exactly. And you know what? As a matter of fact, he's toxic. Right? And we start labeling. It's very interesting. If we're honest, how many of us are toxic children? It's like, shit, we didn't come for this. We didn't know we signed up for this conversation. We came for Surah Yusuf. But no, is this not the case here? These children. See, scholars differ about the truth of what they said. Some scholars said the Prophet Yaqub is a prophet. He would never treat his children unfairly. He's a prophet of God. He would have treated every one of them equally fair. They actually didn't say that the Prophet Yaqub treats Yusuf and Binyamin better. They didn't say that. What did they say? They said that our father loves them more. But how do you know if someone loves someone more? That's something of the heart. You don't actually know that. So some scholars said the Prophet Yaqub loved them all equally, or treated them all equally, even if he loved some of them a bit more. They didn't know with certainty that that was the case. So where are they getting this from? No, my father loves them more. Where are they getting that from? Is it from facts or is it from projection? Could have been projection. Some scholars said that no, actually it's not far-fetched. It's very natural that if you have two types of children, that your heart naturally inclines to the one that's more obedient. Look at the relationship that Yusuf has with his father. He has a problem, go straight to his dad. Dad, help me out. These 11 have a problem, what do? Let's get together. Let's plan. And even in the plan, what do they say? Yeah, our dad's totally wrong. Are you telling me that if you had one child that came to you that was so righteous, that would always seek your advice, and you had another child who was like, Mom, Dad, you're whack. You're totally off. You're telling me you love them both the same? Really? You couldn't help yourself and you wouldn't feel a little bit more love and compassion for the one that's obedient? That's not giving you a headache? You're telling me you wouldn't feel that at all? And so some commentators say that it's not that the Prophet Yaqub just intentionally wanted to love Yusuf and his brother more. It's that the behaviors, right? Like we're seeing the behaviors right here. The next verse, what do they start talking about? Like it takes a certain capacity to sit in a conversation and say, what? Maybe we should kill Yusuf. Right? What does that say about the character of the brothers? It just says that they're not the greatest people. The fact that they're considering murder here of their own brother. And then you have the prophet Yusuf. He's a young boy, who's really close to his dad. Because he's innocent. He just comes and says, Dad, that's what I saw. I don't know. Can you help me? Can you blame the prophet Yaqub if he ended up feeling a little bit more love for Yusuf and his brother? Right, so the scholars, they differ over the way that Yaqub had a relationship with his sons. What's the reason why they said that their father was mistaken? Why was it that they believed they deserved more love? What do they say here? They said, we're so many. They judge their value based on something just external. There's only 2 of them. He loves those 2 more than us 11. What kind of dad is that? And how many of us are like that in our lives? Jealousy is almost always based on the outer appearance of something. You see someone doing well and you're jealous. You're like, why are they doing so well? Meanwhile, you have no idea of what they went through to get where they are. And maybe if you found out what it took them to get where they are, you might say, you know what, good for them. Isn't that the difference right there? Because you don't know the story. And if you knew the story, maybe you would just totally shift the way you think about them. And actually be happy for them. No? Because we get jealous when we feel someone doesn't deserve something. So in our heads, it's almost like they're born into that privilege. They don't deserve it. I'm working so much harder than them. But who knows what it took them to get to where they are? That's why it's so important to hear people's stories. So you don't judge them by the surface. You have a more accurate understanding of what they've been through. And so they said, they couldn't understand why their father would love Yusuf more. And this is deeply personal for a lot of us, no? Maybe you look at one of your siblings and say, what? I swear my mom or my dad loves them more. Huh? But here's the question. Is that child more obedient? More caring? Just be real. Just be real. Maybe that child is not perfect. No. The requirement is not perfection. But maybe that child is the one that goes and sits with your mom or your dad and just hears them say things. Because sometimes they just talk. And you're like, it's a waste of time. If I go there, they're going to gossip about what's going on in the city and da-da-da-da-da. I don't want to hear all that. Yeah, well, maybe your sibling says, I don't want to hear it either, but they go and sit. And they listen. Why? Because they're not listening for their own self-interest. They're listening for the sake of their parent. And you look at that and you're jealous. You're like, man, why is it that they love that person more? And if you're honest, it might be very well that child does so much more. Right? When the parent calls that child and says, hey, can you come and do this? They're the first one. They call you and you're like, yeah, I'm working on my homework. Right? Ooh, that was a tough one, wasn't it? Inshallah. Allah. Guys, I'm not here, I'm sorry, to tell you what you want to hear. Right? That's not what I'm here for. Our goal is to live more in alignment with life as it is, reality as it is. That's tough. But all transformation starts with a period of self-questioning, where you begin to ask yourself, wait, what am I doing to contribute to the problem? Is there a different angle, a different way of looking at this? Because otherwise we can convince ourselves of a narrative And the first person to come and argue on your behalf is Shaitan and your nafs. And so, subhanAllah, look what it, this next ayah, and we'll read this in the last ayah, inshallah. Verse number 9. What do they say? Some of them say, kill Yusuf. And the others say, no, maybe we should cast him out to some distant land. Why? Why are they doing this? It's so interesting because their intention is not inherently evil. Right? Their intention is not inherently evil. This is the paradox of the human condition, is that we would like for the world to be just good and evil because it's so much simpler, and that's rarely the case. Within everybody you'll find some goodness, and of course, some flaws. Everybody. One of the most jarring experiences, if you ever get to go through this, is when you go to prison to visit, and you see how similar you are to prisoners. Because in our heads, people in prison are just evil. We're like, we're good. They're evil. And you go there and you're like, we're the same. But then, whoa, it's very unsettling to realize that you have the same propensity and capacity as them. Maybe for whatever reason, circumstances didn't push you to that. Didn't put you in that situation. That's how we want to think. So look at them here. They're talking about what? Murdering Yusuf. They're talking about taking him somewhere else and leaving him out there. And this is not, developed North America, where you could just stand on the highway and hitchhike and be like, I'll get back home. This is the middle of a desert. You drop someone out there, they're going to die, probably. So one is like obvious murder, where you actually murder them, and one is leaving them to die. Either way, they're both terrible acts. But look at what they're looking for. They say, so that the whole reason we're going to do this is so that ultimately we can earn the love of our dad. Isn't that wild? Human beings will often make some bad decisions seeking something good. And then what do they say? Oh, this is such a common expression here. After we mess up, we're going to repent and become good people. This is all Shaitan right here. This is all Shaitan. Look at the first thing Shaitan says. Kill Yusuf. Naturally, even his brothers will do what? No, astaghfirullah. You can't do that. There's a technique in psychology called door in your face. Ever heard of this? Door in the face technique? It's where you go and you make an outlandish offer to somebody, knowing they're going to shut it down. So you come and you say, hey, would you like to donate $1,000? They're like, $1,000? No, I can't do it. Okay, fine. Why don't you do just do 50. And you're like, okay, fine. Because you don't want to keep saying no. So they get you to say no once, you feel bad about it, and then they drop the number, and you're like, okay, fine, I can do 50, But imagine they started at 50. Would you donate 50? No, 50? No, I can't. Right? So they start with an outlandish offer, because you will say no. Then you'll feel guilty about saying no. You don't want to keep saying no. So then they drop it. And you're like, okay, fine, yeah. In another way, it's known as anchoring, where you anchor their mindset somewhere so that if you drop it, it looks like you're giving them a good deal. Right? That's where, if you go to stores and they say, well, originally $600 and now it's $100, and you're like, good deal. And you compare it to other stores and it's like regular price $100. And you thought you were getting a deal. Y'all don't do that? Okay, good. Come to my store, guys. No, I'm joking. Y'all are just some good shoppers over here. No, you don't compare to a different store the moment you see it. It's door in the face. So Shaitan comes and says what? Go kill Yusuf. And everyone's like, astaghfirullah, we can never do that. So okay, fine, we'll leave him in the desert. You're like, yeah, we can do that. That's not that bad. Because compared to killing him, that's not that bad. That's Shaitan. And then what do you tell yourself? Well, at least I'm not doing the worst thing. Huh? Isn't that what we say? Yeah, I'm not doing X, Y, Z with them. We're just going to watch a movie together. Other people are doing way worse. Set that shaitan for you right there. Kill Yusuf. Not killing him? Okay, fine. Just go and do this. Sometimes it's the same thing, all right? Or it's leading to it. It's the same thing. It doesn't seem that bad, though. And subhanAllah, we justify it. We say, I'm doing this, why? I'm doing it so that ultimately I can get something halal out of it. No, I'm real serious about this, right? You can't rob a bank and donate to the masjid, right? Rob the bank and pull up that Wijhah and be like, yo, I'm a sustainer here. No, thank you. That's not how that works. But this is the mentality. I'm going to do something good with it. Look, sometimes in life, you only have one chance to do it right the first time. Don't jeopardize. Don't jeopardize your relationship with Allah by listening to shaitan tell you that, okay, it's okay if the beginning's haram and it'll end up halal. That's shaitan. That's shaitan. Don't do that. That's what they're doing here. Even though what you're doing is halal, it's a good thing, but don't adopt a means because they don't justify the ends. That's not Islamic ethics. The means don't justify or the ends don't justify the means, rather. And so, and then they tell themselves, what at the end? That we're going to repent and become righteous people. That's shaitan as well. Inshallah, when I get married, I'll become better. When I go for Hajj, when I do this, then I'll start doing X, Y, Z religious act. Right? Then I'll start praying 5 times a day. Then I'll start wearing hijab. Then I'll start doing this. Then I'll stay away from that. It's an illusion that I have time. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that people are deluded when it comes to the concept of free time. You don't know how much time you have. And subhanAllah, we're living in times where we're seeing people come down with autoimmune diseases more and more. We're seeing people pass away young because of something that overcomes them, cancer or something. May Allah protect us all. There is no guarantee. And so let us not be deluded by the devil into believing I can continue sinning today because I still have a lot of time to change myself. There's no guarantees of that. The last thing I'll mention here, which I think is so fascinating. Why did they want to get rid of Yusuf? What did they want? They wanted their father to love them. Those of you who know the story, what ended up happening? The total opposite. They wanted their father to be pleased with them, to love them. So they adopted a means which brought about the total opposite result. All they got to see was their father grief-stricken. All they got to see was their father in tears every single day. They wanted their father's love. But they chose a means that brought about the total opposite end. And sometimes we do that in our lives, if we're honest. When we don't go about seeking love the right way, we put ourselves in position to end up heartbroken. People will say, I want a loyal and faithful partner. A loyal and faithful partner would not go about it the haram way. I want a righteous partner. They wouldn't go about it the haram way. Where did you find them? In the club. That's not where you're going to find a righteous partner. I'm just being very direct here. We want something good, but we delude ourselves by not acknowledging that the method we're taking will bring it about. For anyone who's just objective and honest from a third person's perspective, it won't bring about the ending and the result you want. Because you're not going about it the right way. Do you understand this? So sometimes we want something good, but we're so deluded not realizing that the The means I'm taking are going to bring about the opposite ending. I just want someone who cares about me and loves me. Well, then they'll be willing to go about it the halal way. They'll get families involved. I want someone mature and serious. They'll get families involved. They won't make false promises. They won't beat around the bush. They won't keep families out of it for so long. Do you understand this idea? No, I have to say this, guys. Because I've spoken to many people who are confused as to why it didn't work out. Shaykh, all I wanted was to get married to someone righteous. And I'm like, did you notice like the way the story evolved? Where it started? Like nothing along that path told you anything about where you might end up? To an onlooker, sometimes it's extremely obvious. Do you get what I'm saying? So, realize that when our judgment is clouded by jealousy or any type of character flaw, we are, we're jealous, we are lustful, we are greedy, we are power hungry. We sometimes, due to these flaws, we want a good outcome, but we adopt a means that's so off. And then we're confused. I don't know why it ended up that way. It's like anybody who is sincere, who give you sincere advice would have told you from day one that you were on a course that was not going to end up good. And so may Allah Ta'ala grant us tawfiq to realize the flaws and deficiencies and weaknesses, vulnerabilities that we have within us. May He grant us the ability to really address those flaws before they become a means of us really making bad decisions in our lives. May He always surround us with people who will give us good, sincere, honest advice. Say Ameen, guys. Some of you are like, no, I don't know. Say Ameen, inshallah, right? May Allah Ta'ala grant us the ability to really understand and derive lessons from His book. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.